Dropped you there.
Sorry, Drew. I accidentally dropped the call. That was on me.
That's okay.
And Drew, we are recording, just so you're aware on my end as well.
Okay, so we're both recording. Let me do a little intro first. Drew Rebar, Auditing Reno 911, talking with Tabitha Mueller from the Nevada Independent on a recorded line about a lawsuit. There we go.
And Drew, can you first tell me a little bit about yourself in terms of your job, occupation, and kind of what Reno 911 is?
Well, I'm essentially a business guy that was running my business happily and wanted nothing to do with politics, wanted nothing to do with the government. I just wanted to run my business, take care of my family. And then in 2017, Governor Lombardo, who was then a sheriff, signed a contract with out-of-state corporation to send them $25 of my money and your money without any legislative approval or any Administrative Procedures Act, creating an ad hoc tax, and that kind of made me upset. And then in 2019, the Nevada DMV started creating ad hoc rules, and their purpose, according to the emails that I've got, is to prevent small businesses like mine from profiting. And that really bothered me, so I started recording the government and publishing it, and they didn't like it.
And why are you seeking to register as both a lobbyist and a press corps member?
Well, because I want to push legislation. I want to push a bill that I've written that requires constitutional training for all government employees, and that would fit in right along with the sexual harassment training that government employees are already required to take. And I think if government employees all knew what everybody's constitutional rights were and the rights that they're sworn to uphold and paid to uphold, I think our state, our communities would be a better place, and we the people would be getting better services from our government.
And as far as kind of your, if the press media credential, is that for Reno 911? Would it be accurate to describe that as a website, a watchdog website, or how would you kind of frame Reno 911?
I just investigate government activities. I go into places with cameras and see what they're doing and see how they treat people and see if they uphold our constitutional rights or if they violate the law and violate the Constitution. And then after that, I try to hold them accountable and try to make some change.
And you said that you shared emails with us indicating that you believe state law improperly forces people to choose between their First Amendment rights, which you say violates the U.S. Constitution and the Nevada Constitution. When you say forces people to choose between their First Amendment rights, what are they choosing between, though? Their First Amendment rights and the right to advocate for something, or what is the choice that you say that people are forced to make? Well,
essentially, if you're a lobbyist, and I've been a registered lobbyist, I think 2017. I'd have to go back in my records and look, but I lobbied before with Senator Mo Dennis and got some changes made to the law that made some things safer for the public, like the blue lights in the back of tow trucks and service vehicles in the freeway. We got that done. We got some impound laws changed so that private property owners were protected along with owners of vehicles were protected, so that cars couldn't just be taken willy-nilly, and there was a better process for that for the public. So that's what Senator Dennis and I worked on, and we got those laws changed and approved. So when you're a lobbyist, you're pushing to change laws or support laws and do things like that. As a member of media, you're there to ask questions and publish the information that you get. And when I asked to do both this session, I was told that I can only do one and not the other. And I've got a bill that I want to push, but I'm not allowed to push the bill if I'm acting as a member of press. So what I think has happened is they've made these laws that are overbroad, where I can't go out and be a member of the press and publish information if I'm out there pushing a bill or opposing a bill without risk of losing credentials or risk of losing access to the legislature. And I believe...
Do you think, though, that there's an inherent conflict of interest in being a lobbyist and a press member at the same time?
Well, I look at the history of things. So if you go back into the history of the United States, did Ben Franklin have a conflict of interest? And then you go back and have you ever been into the lobbyist room at the legislature there?
I've seen it, yes. It's right across from the press room.
And did you know did you ever look in the wall? There's a picture of a man there. I forget his name right now. And did you see what he was? He was a member of the press. I think he was KOH, if I recall, and he was a lobbyist all at the same time. So we have a centuries of history of members of the press, both lobbying and publishing and disseminating information all at the same time. Yet here we are that we can't do that anymore.
So are you saying that it is not a conflict of interest to be both a member of the press and a lobbyist because of historical precedent?
Well, historical precedent obviously is there, but let me ask you a question. How would lobbying and documenting and disseminating your actions to the public so that they can see what you're doing and keeping everything transparent be a conflict of interest at all? Because if you're lobbying and pushing a bill and you're recording and documenting what you're doing and then putting it out there for the public to see so that the public can judge you, how could there be a conflict of interest if you're putting light on things?
I think the question, I think that when you look at lobbying and transparency, that's great. But the sort of inherent conflict of interest is that members of the press are supposed to kind of present what is being said in what is sort of a fair way. And it could be unfair if you are lobbying for certain interests and then writing about those interests and sort of maybe putting your own spin on things without the public being aware of that, right? And it gets you into rooms that maybe you wouldn't otherwise be in, or you'd be around conversations that could then feed your lobbying efforts and then feed the journalism stuff, and it could kind of get a little dicey there, at least from I think that could be one argument that would be made.
Well, so you're talking about a fair press, right?
Mm-hmm.
An unbiased press. So the Nevada Independent published a story about me in the Washoe County libraries, right? You recall that?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah, so basically what you published about me was a lie, because the Washoe County published that I was the cause of injury to a librarian, but nobody ever reached out to me. And I mean, Tabitha, you've had my phone number for a long time. I think Jaden over at RGJ's had my phone number for a long time. A lot of members of the press, Bob Conrad's got my phone number. Everybody's got my phone number. But instead of reaching out to me to say, "Hey, Drew, we heard this about you," you just published what they said instead of doing an investigation. And so is the press really neutral? Or if we look at CBS News and 60 Minutes recently, they're getting sued and they're having issues. Is the press really neutral? Or if you look at NPR and their funding, or the funding that we're discovering with the BBC and our federal government, is our press really neutral, or are they bought off? I mean, I'm just a single individual, and if I put my opinion out there, as a member of media, it's just an opinion. Just like when you put your opinion out there onto the work that you do, it's your opinion. So I think that just being a member of the media, whether you're a few hundred years ago with Ben Franklin, or even more recently, I can go look up the guy's name. We've all got our opinion, and as a member of the media publishing information, we put our opinion on there, and then we let the people judge us. And they either watch what we do, read what we do, see what we do. They agree, disagree, but at least you put something out there. So I think that that's really a false argument.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think that it's mainly just because I really try and keep most of my opinions out of, obviously I'm a human, I think most humans have opinions, but really try and present a fair picture of what's happening at any given time and place in whatever story we're writing. And so I was just kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that. I think that we got a hold of kind of the letter that you referenced in your email, where LCB kind of explained that there are well-established statutory rules, longstanding legislative regulations, that the lobbying, that legal precedent kind of shows the Lobbying Act doesn't place unconstitutional burdens on rights protected by the First Amendment, which includes the freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. We also saw that in that letter they talked about legislative immunity from claims arising from decisions to deny media credentialing, because that is a core legislative function. Is there anything that you want to respond to that or think I should be aware of?
Well, I look at the Supreme Court decisions from, I think it started back in the 1980s, and how do you interpret the Constitution? In the most recent decision, it's called the Bruin decision. It's a Second Amendment decision. They really the Supreme Court really defined how do you interpret the Constitution and your protected rights. And what they said is the test is you look at what were the laws, the regulations, the restrictions at the time the constitutional amendment was ratified. And that's why I go back to looking at Ben Franklin, I go back to looking at the history of the Nevada legislature, and we've had this history throughout our nation up until recently. And if you really look at what's happened to our nation recently, we've really started to hammer down on First Amendment rights and freedom of speech rights, like the internet. So for example, I'm involved with the libraries. I've got another lawsuit there. And the librarians sit up there and they say, you know, we're all for not banning books, we're all not for banning speech, we're all not for banning anything, you know, people should have the right. Yet when I publish information on YouTube, they contact YouTube, and the public employees at the library have had my YouTube videos demonetized, so I'm no longer being paid, I'm still publishing, and they've had my videos taken down because they don't like my videos. And the only thing that I publish are government interactions for the most part. But yet they say my information that I'm publishing, and my videos are not AI, they're just live videos, they don't like how they act, and they want to get them taken down. So they've interacted with YouTube and Google to have things removed. So is that really freedom of speech when the government reaches out to other entities and has people's comments removed? Do we have freedom of speech in this country? Can you say what you want to say without any repercussions? I can't. And that's fundamental. And if you look at the Nevada Constitution is even stronger than the federal Constitution, because it's Article 1, Section 9. It says no law shall be made to abridge freedom of speech or press. Yet we've made laws to abridge that. And we can make time, place, and manner restrictions, but they've got to be very narrowly tailored. So, for example, with your press credentials, you can go down on the floor of the Assembly or the Senate, right?
Yes, in certain contexts.
Right. So what I think would be reasonable, time, place, and manner, is if they say you can't lobby as you're acting as a member of the media on the floor as you're recording and reporting that information, that's a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. But on the other hand, I was sitting down with Assemblyman Max Carter here, what was it, last week or whenever it was, and we had a really good conversation. But I was not free to sit down in his office and say, I want to lobby can you help me get a BDR to push this law that I want to have the Constitution taught to our government employees. I couldn't do that because they put restrictions on me. Now is that right that I can't push a bill that is, I think, very nonpartisan? The Constitution, I don't think, is partisan. It gives us all rights.
But I think the question here is, if you were to go, there's nothing stopping you from lobbying in practicality if you ended up on the floor of the legislature, to use your example. And I think that's sort of the issue that they're trying to maybe address here, although I don't want to speak for anybody. I just wanted to bring that up as an consideration.
I think you and I are on the same page that way, it sounds like. And if they made reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions that says, hey, Tabitha, hey, Drew, you guys can't talk about bills or push your opinion on bills while you're out there on the floor.
There's no way to enforce that, I think, is another question that's raised by this.
Well, no, actually there is a way to enforce it, because if I'm live streaming, you're seeing exactly what I'm doing. So you can say, Drew, you did this on the floor because you live streamed this. We saw exactly what you did. So you're naughty, and we're going to take your credentials away, and you can't do this anymore. So there's a great way to enforce it. On the other hand, if like I'm social media and I do videos. You, on the other hand, you're print media or digital print. You're not doing videos like I'm doing, so you're not recording your every action. On the other hand, my every action is recorded, so I'm very accountable for what I'm doing because I've recorded it. So you technically could go down on the floor with your press credentials and push some bills, but if I'm sitting there recording on the floor and documenting what's going on and I'm pushing bills, it's on the video. On the other hand, if I'm on the floor in the same place that you're on and I'm recording you doing your job and them doing their job, everybody's very accountable at that point in time. So I think that with a video, it's very easy to hold people accountable, whereas if you're more of a written print type of a media, you're much less accountable because you haven't recorded every action that you've done.
Gotcha. Well, I think those are all of my questions for right now. If there's anything else, I'll probably give you a call. We're just going to write a short thing on this in our Behind the Bar newsletter, so I don't think I'll be able to get to everything we discussed, but just kind of wanted to understand where you were coming from, so I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you calling me. I just want everybody to have the same equal rights throughout our communities, our state, and our nation. And I don't think we've got that right now. And really what I'm doing with my lawsuits is I'm trying to make some case law. I'm trying to ensure that our Constitution is upheld, because what we've got right now, the way that I look at the world as running my business, is the rules have superseded the regulations. The regulations have superseded the laws, and the Constitution is the last thing that anybody in our government thinks about. Where I believe, and constitutionally, our Constitution should be above everything. And if we do that, we'll have a lot more freedom for everybody to live their lives the way that they choose to live their lives. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Drew, for your time, and I'll reach out if there's any further follow-up questions.
Yeah, and I'll see you around. I don't know if they're going to give me my press credentials yet. We'll see what happens.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, bye.